Hi, this is video 2 of the review of the book Ayn Rand, The Virtue of Selfishness, and I'll just continue reading on and then we'll go to the board. To rebel against so devastating an evil, one has to rebel against its basic premise. To redeem both man and morality, it is the concept of selfishness that one has to redeem. Again, she's saying altruism is evil. The first step is to assert man's right to a moral existence, that is, to recognize his need for a moral code to guide the course and fulfillment of one's own life. So this is not just selfishness without regards to others. As a matter of fact, she believed in a highest moral code and love, the currency of which being virtue, that you earn her love through you being virtuous and deserving of that love. For a brief outline of the nature and validation of a rational morality, see my lecture on the objectivist ethics, which follows. The reason why man needs a moral code will tell you that the purpose of morality is to define man's proper values and interests. That concern with his own interests is the essence of moral existence, and that man must be the beneficiary of his own moral actions. Since all values have to be gained and or kept by men's actions, any breach between actor and beneficiary necessitates an injustice. The sacrifice of some men to others, of the actors to the non-actors, of the moral to the immoral, nothing could ever justify such a breach, and no one ever has. She was a big believer in private property rights. You have no right, no moral obligation to have to give this to society through socialism, and nobody has the right to tax you or take your private property. If anybody would, through force, you meet force with force. Since all values that have to be gained or kept by men's actions, any breach between actor and beneficiary necessitates an adjustment, the sacrifice of some men to others, of the actors to non-actors. We read that. The choice of the beneficiary of moral values is merely a preliminary or introductory issue in the field of morality. The objectivist ethics holds that the actor must always be the beneficiary of his action, and that man must act for his own rational self-interest. But his right to do so is derived from his nature as man and from the function of moral values in human life. She believed in a moral code to the universe, that there is a rational, proper way to exist. And this is attained through the rational mind. Therefore, it is applicable only in the context of a rational, objectively demonstrated and validated code of moral principles which define and determine his actual self-interest. It is not a license to do as he pleases, and if it is not applicable to the altruist image of a selfish brute, nor to any man motivated by irrational emotions, feeling, urges, wishes, or whims. This is said as a warning against the kind of Nietzschean egoists who in fact are a product of the altruist morality and represent the other side of the altruist coin, the men who believe that any action, regardless of its nature, is good if it is intended for one's own benefit. So in Ayn Rand's philosophy, she believed in self-interest, but never to hurt or infringe on anybody else's freedom, private property, or rights. Where she believed, Nietzsche believed in that you could do anything you wanted for your own personal satisfaction. A similar type of error is committed by the man who declares that since man must be guided by his own independent judgment, any action he chooses to take is moral if he chooses it. One's own independent judgment is the means by which one must choose one's actions. but is not a moral criterion nor a moral validation. Only reference to a demonstrable principle can validate one's choices. Just as man cannot survive by any random means, but must discover and practice the principles which his survival requires, so man's self-interest cannot be determined by blind desires or random whims, but must be discovered and achieved by the guidance of rational principles. So she really believed in the mind as the greatest asset that each human being has, and virtually your only asset is your mind, and also that all of your principles should be based on a rational view of the world, not irrational, not a belief in God, not altruism, which is against self-interest, everything based on this rational view. Since selfishness is concerned with one's own interests, the objectivist ethic uses the concept in its exact and purest sense. It is not a concept that can surrender to man's enemies, nor to the unthinking misconceptions, distortion, prejudices, and fears of the ignorant and the irrational. The attack on selfishness is an attack on man's self-esteem. To surrender one is to surrender the other. So with that, I will stop this second video.